Hello, hello. Welcome everybody to another premium customer workshop. I'm William Sayer, your customer enablement lead. And here we have Tyler, one of our customer success engineers joining us on the call today. So hello, Tyler, welcome.
Yeah, glad to be here.
For those of you who have been on this call before, welcome back. For those of you who are new, welcome. We spend 60 minutes going through what we'll be working on today is we will be basically creating a tool using Bolt to automate your research when it comes to creating social posts. So it's a really exciting workshop. We'll be building three agents all within your Bolt project. And the first one will be creating questions about your industry. The second one will be then going off and doing deep research around this. And then the third will be synthesizing this into a social post, which you'll be able to use, hopefully save you a lot of time when it comes to creating your social posts. So just as a little bit of housekeeping, first of all, I can see some of you are already writing some comments. So welcome. Feel free to introduce yourselves, say where you're dialing in from. And if you'd like to introduce your project, feel free to drop a link in there as well. Maybe say what your background is. We usually get people from all over the world joining for these, so it's exciting. These are specifically for the Bolt Premium customers and people on Teams plans, so it's not for everybody, just for our higher end customers like yourself. So thanks for joining us. It's a great way to have this tight-knit community. Feel free to do a bit of networking if you want to drop your socials in there or your LinkedIn or whatever it may be. Feel free to do that now. I see we've got a few questions already. So first, we're wondering, will we get these prompts? Yes, we'll be posting these prompts. So we will be recording this whole session and we'll be posting it to YouTube tomorrow. And in the description, we'll add both the PowerPoint that we'll be presenting today and also some prompts as well. And then you can also use the site workshops.bolt.host, and we include all of the parts, workshops and the prompts there as well. So we're almost ready to get started. I can see some people are joining in from all over the world. We've got Mabrak from Dallas, Texas, founder and owner of Ambi Solutions. Welcome. We got someone, Alicia from South Africa. Welcome. Nick from North Dakota. Welcome, welcome. And we got more joining in as well. So thanks for joining us today. And we're almost ready to get into it. So just a little more introduction on Tyler. Tyler's one of our very talented customer success engineers. So whenever you submit support tickets into Bolt, he's one of the guys who helps out respond to your questions. So he will basically, if you have any questions today, feel free to write them in the comments. Tyler will do his best to either answer them directly in the comments, or if they're relevant to the point in time at the workshop, then he will show them on the screen and we'll be able to go through them together. So great. With that, we've got a lot on our plate today, so we'll dive straight into it. Okay, hopefully we can all see my screen okay. This is the first slide. So basically what we'll be doing, as I briefly touched on before, is we're going to be automating your manual research and basically helping you do research on relevant topics in your industry or around your career that you may want to create a personal brand about and you may want to create these social posts for. Now, as we all know, building is one thing, and then marketing is the second piece of the puzzle. And so this is really going to help you with that. And if you've got an app, a lot of us will spend a lot of time building the app and maybe neglect the marketing. And, maybe you're a little shy when it comes to posting on socials, but we have seen a trend over the last few years around building in public. And if you are able to develop a little bit of both a personal brand and then also a social presence for the brand itself, these can both be two incredible levers that you can use to bring customers to your app. So we're going to be building a tool in Bolt to make that whole process a lot easier and simpler for you. So with that, let's dive in and look over the agenda for today. So by the end of the hour, the first thing we'll be doing is we'll be building a custom web app that works as the front door for your AI tool. The second thing we'll be doing is we'll be wiring up server functions so that you can call third-party APIs safely. We'll be creating these server functions to create questions, draft the social posts using Anthropic's Claude model, and then we'll also be using Google's recently released Gemini Deep Research API. So some of you may be familiar with Deep Research. You can, in all of the large LLMs, you can basically go in and trigger off a 10-minute-ish workflow where it will gather dozens, sometimes hundreds of sources and synthesize all of this information together on your topic of choice and create this really in-depth, deep research article about the question that you've asked. And Google, as of last month, they actually released an API for this, and we're going to be using that API so that you can do research on the social post that you want to do, and then synthesize information for the specific post based on that. So the third thing, as I kind of mentioned, we're going to drive Claude as the research agent, not just as a chatbot. So Claude, Gemini will be using as the research agent, and then Claude will be using as a wrapper on either side of that to determine the questions and then also synthesize it. So this will start to make sense as we get building. And finally, we're going to add system prompts and add a bit of a social tone so that you can add your own specific brand voice when it comes to the social posts that you're creating. So let's carry on. Now, you're probably wondering, what's the importance of posting to socials? And here's a few stats that I found. And 60% of people, according to some studies, say that marketing your product content is a blocker. And I'm sure some of you can probably resonate with this, that it may, as a developer or a designer, it's really easy to build the products, but then when it actually comes to articulating it and sharing it on socials is one thing, and then doing that consistently is a whole nother kettle of fish. So that's another challenge that comes, and the whole point of this workshop is to really help you out there. So basically, you want to be doing 3 to 5 social posts, sometimes even more per week. I heard recently that the X algorithm, if you post for 10 days consistently, then it boosts your ranking in the algorithm. So it's often hard for us to fully understand how these algorithms work, but it's pretty common knowledge that the more you post, the more it's going to prioritize your account and your content. And then, the 70% of our time can go into research and understanding like the basis of these social posts rather than the actual writing itself. So we're going to be automating a large part of that.
Hey, Will, sorry, because I'm new to these calls. We had a
Yeah.
question about whether or not this is recorded. And
Oh, yes. Yes, good question. This is all recorded. We'll be hosting this to our YouTube channel tomorrow inside of we've got a specific playlist in YouTube called Workshops. And there you can go look back through all of the workshops that we've been doing on a weekly basis for the last 6 months or so. So you can look back past workshops there. And this will be recorded. I will point out as well that when we do post these workshops, if we show your comment on the screen, that it does include your full name. So if you don't want your question to be shown on the screen, please just write that on the comment as well. Great. Okay. So another bit of research saying that most creators who do long form content posts can spend around 5 hours researching this. And, maybe some people can do it a lot faster, but, it's pretty common that it can be challenging to write in-depth, meaningful post and share that with others. So the whole point of this workshop is to really help you out there. So as I kind of mentioned before in the agenda, we're going to build this social post generator. We'll be building the custom web app inside of Bolt. We'll be doing these secure server functions. For those of you who aren't really familiar with server functions, it's basically creating a chunk of code that doesn't live inside of your app. It basically lives on a server. And then when you can basically send off, you trigger an API call, and that basically then triggers that chunk of code, and that can interact with LLMs, and then that can bring that information directly back into your app. We'll be using Claude as the brain behind it, and then also superpower it with Google's Deep Research API. And then we're going to have a platform-specific output. So we're going to be focusing mainly on LinkedIn and X for this, but this will be showing the structure as well. So if there are other social platforms that you want to optimize for, you should be able to follow this same structure and be able to adapt this workshop to your social media platform of choice. And with the platform-specific output point, we're going to create a unique tone of voice for each of these platforms so that we create unique posts for each. Okay, so now the first major concept. Oh, sorry, I just saw there was a comment that was, here we go, Fernando. Can the same logic be used for Instagram and Facebook? Really good question. I will point out that like Instagram is very visual, so you'll want an image as well. There are some incredible image generators out there. Obviously, when Nano Banana came out last year, that was that had a really big impact on your ability to create relevant images based on the post itself. So I won't actually be generating images here inside this workshop, but I'll touch on how to do so. Also, you may have heard of OpenAI's Image Gen 2 model that was released a few weeks ago now. That really is state of the art and does some incredible jobs in terms of you may have a whole chunk of text as your information or a table or whatever it may be, and then you can create infographics out of that or sort of any visual output that you want. So it really shouldn't be too hard to turn this research into a relevant image as well by calling those APIs. Okay, now the first major concept that I want to touch on in this workshop is breaking down your agents. Now, there was a really good quote by the CEO of Microsoft, and he's basically in one of a podcast I was listening to recently. He was basically, saying the importance of using a multitude of agents. As I'm sure you're all aware that if you ask too much of one specific chat, then it can get its context all muddled up, and it's almost like a jack of all trades but a master of none. What we're going to be doing in this workshop is we're actually going to be creating 3 specific server functions inside of your Bolt app so that one agent will be specifically focused on creating relevant questions to do with your career and your industry. And once it's created those questions, we're then going to pass off that specific question into another agent, which is then going to do deep research on that question and find all of the relevant information. And then the third agent that we're going to do is effectively the ghostwriter or your copywriter, which will then synthesize all of that information from that research and then create a social post from that. So it's when I was almost preparing for this workshop, my initial take and probably the most obvious path forward is when you're asking an LLMs, it went something like this. It was create a captivating social post that I can share with my audience about this topic. But the problem with that is that it kind of has a tendency to create this very clickbaity titles, and your social posts may sound great, but they may not actually be based in real research. So it could come up, as I said, just with a really clickbaity title, but you want to make sure that like the information behind that is actually true and honest. And so that's why we're starting off with a question, an open-ended question that we're going to generate. And then we're going to send that off to go do deep research. And then from that research, we're then going to synthesize that information into a social post so that it's actually grounded in research rather than just one agent that can potentially create misinformed information. So I can see we got a question from Adrian. My website posts to Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, and YouTube. Will it work with these so I can market my business from it? Yeah, so as I said, we won't have time to cover all of these today. I will be showing you basically the structure of building out a post specifically for X and for LinkedIn. Similar to the previous question we had before, for like Instagram, for example, I'll propose a structure that you can use to create images. If we have time, we'll get to that at the end. And then also from an image that you create, you can then go into a tool like Grok Imagine and turn that image into a video, or you can use Google's model as well that will turn an image into a video as well. With Google I/O just 2 days ago, they announced their new like video to video model. So you can basically bring in videos and then tweak those videos. You can say, for example, something that they demoed was a video of Big Ben in London, and they said, change this to be a dusk setting. And it kept the exact same video, and then it changed it from daytime into nighttime and added New Year's Eve fireworks and changed the time on Big Ben to look like it was midnight. So that's probably something worth looking into if you are specifically thinking about releasing, video on some of these video channels like YouTube or TikTok, that you can use Google's new model that they just released 2 days ago to adapt some of this research or adapt your image into a video, and then you can fine tune that video as well. Okay, jumping back into the slides here. So our first agent that we're going to build is basically the interviewer. And this is going to turn basically who you are and what you should be talking about. So it's going to capture information around your career and also your industry, and then also an optional field for your topic. So what I'll do is just give me a second here. I will open up the prompt because I want to share the prompt with you guys. I should be able to open this here. Here we go. Oh, my apologies, wrong document. 1 second. Okay, here we go. So let me copy this and open it up. You should all be able to see my Notion page. Oops, sorry, I've just got a couple of things going on my end. Let me just make sure that this is all working. Oh, sorry, guys, just bear with me 1 second.
I see okay. Workshop, automate the manual research.
Amazing. Great. Thank you, Tyler. Yes. Okay. So here we are. Now, I'm just going to zoom this in so it's a little easier for you guys to read. Here we go. So this will be our Bolt prompt that we're going to submit. So build an app to help me generate social media posts. It should have a sidebar with 3 pages. One is the topic choice, where I can input information about my career, the industry that I'm working on, and an optional topic input as well. Add generate questions button into this page. And when I click it, it should make an API call to Anthropic's Claude Opus 4.7 model, which sends off these 3 inputs and is able to determine 5 relevant questions for me to do research on, which should determine relevant, topical, and present day topics. After these questions have been generated, they should have a button that says add to research. Clicking this should add it to the research page. So we can think of this topic choice as our first agent. The second part is our research agent here. So this page shows all of the topics that have been selected from the topic page. They should also be able to be deleted. Topics here should have a button that says conduct research. Do not create a research API call just yet. We'll get to that. And the reason why I'm doing that is because this will need its own server function. And because we're completely constructing this app from scratch, to ask it to do a multitude of different server functions could start to overwhelm the agent. So I'm going to build out these agents step by step. It's just basically structuring this page. So research cards should have relevant status tags, and I should be able to click into them and view the detailed research findings. From here, I should be able to click draft a post, which then adds this research item into the post generator page, which is down here. and then just structure this page for now. I will build it out properly later. So let's grab this prompt, and I'm going to bring it over into Bolt. Notice that we have our new standard and max models. So I'm going to choose max for this. And this basically helps you intelligently route to the model that's most relevant. You know, some people are complaining about using too many tokens unnecessarily or not using enough tokens when you've got a more complex question. Basically, our new standard and max models help you determine which model is the best to do so. So now that I've pasted that in, there's a new feature that I want to show you guys, which we're really excited about. It's basically, you've probably seen me do this before, our enhance prompt feature, but it's different now. As of about a week ago, instead of it auto just correcting what the prompt says, it's now actually running your current prompt through another agent, and it's asking some key questions, which is helping you basically answer to help guide the Bolt agent in the best possible way. So here we go. The first question based on this prompt is asking, what style and tone should the generated social media post have? Professional and formal, casual and conversational, inspirational and motivational, yada, yada, yada. Or you can always choose something else and add that in here. So, you know, I think let's go with inspirational and motivational. So I'm going to select that. Then which social media platforms will this be for? It's got these multiple platforms. I'm just going to focus on X and LinkedIn. So we'll put that in there. For the research findings display, how should the information be displayed? Brief summaries, comprehensive with sources and citations. I like the sound of that. And then should the app save drafts and allow users, and we'll say yes, save drafts to the backend database with, well, actually, we don't really want to set up user accounts. If you are building out a SaaS app so that other users can log in and do so, I would say yes to that. Let's say no user auth. And the reason why I'm saying that is just for the sake of time. It saves me logging in just for this demo so that we can get everything in. We're going to say no user auth, but save the drafts to the database. Great. So now we'll hit enhance prompt, and it's going to use that information to now structure our prompt correctly. Now you'll notice that it's using all these, it's kind of using a markdown formatting thing. So for example, these asterisks are bold, these means headings. And by adding this in here, by structuring it like so, it really helps the agent just comprehend it a little better. Okay, so where can we find and copy the prompt? That prompt, if you want to follow along in real time, which it sounds like you do, what I'm going to do is I'll just copy this prompt and I'm going to paste this directly in the comments. So there you go. If you do want to follow along, it looks like it's actually broken that down into 2 comments, but you should be able to copy and add those together. Okay, should be sorry, let me just come back down. What does it say? Command find should be here we go. Here we go. So that's the last part of the prompt. Sorry, this is not ideal format. I'll work on doing this better for future workshops. But there we go. I've got 3 comments in there. And oh, Mudbrack has helped as well. Thanks with that. So yeah, if you want to follow along, feel free to copy the text from those 3 prompts, and you should be able to add that into Bolt. So here we go. We've got this. I'm going to put it into plan mode, and let's generate our plan. All right, so while that's kicking off, I would also quickly like to announce, some of you may have already seen our Google Stytch announcement, which is really exciting. We have an exciting partnership with Google Stytch now. You may have seen me demonstrate this in previous workshops. So basically, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Google Stytch, I'm going to come back. It's a fantastic design and prototyping tool. So you can come in and basically ask for an app. I like to use 3.1 Pro, their model with the highest capabilities. I'm sure soon this will be 3.5. And then I choose web. and then basically type a prompt in here. And this is an example of an app that it has basically prototyped for us. It does two things really well. One is it creates a design system. So it chooses colors, fonts, the roundness of the corners. We can always come in and edit this visually. We can see dark mode as well. And it also creates a design markdown file. So if you don't have a design system, you can always create one here in Google Stytch. You can then copy this design markdown file, add it into your project root into Bolt, and then tell your Bolt agent to use this design system to build out your project. That's one really exciting feature about Google Stytch. And then the second thing is this is an example of basically some screens that it's been able to create. So with our new partnership, what we do is we can select all of these three screens. We can then come into export, and you'll notice we have export to Bolt. So by clicking this, it then basically sends these screens off to Bolt. There is a caveat that you can only do this process once. So basically, if you've built out three screens and you export them to Bolts, and then you add a fourth screen, for example, if you want to bring that fourth screen into Bolts, you basically then have to press export and copy the code to clipboard, because if you try and do this a second time, it will create a new Bolt project every time you do this. So if you want to add some additional designs into this, just click code to clipboard, copy the code, come into Bolt, paste the code, and then tell the Bolt agent to add that additional page into your project. Okay, let's jump back into Bolt. We can see the plan is ready. Let's quickly read through this summary. This plan delivers a 3-page app with a persistent sidebar. We got topic choice. I'm sure this is pretty good. It's got all these 7 different points, which all look good. Let's check. There's no clarifying questions. So with that, I'm going to click implement this plan. Great. Okay. I can see Tyler's doing a good job answering the questions. Yes. So with this Google Stytch connection, as I said, you can basically export directly to Bolt. It was a partnership we announced just a few days ago, I think earlier this week on Tuesday, maybe. So it's a great way. It builds out the front end really well. And where Stytch and Bolt overlap is that you can really quickly iterate a variety of different designs, change how things look in Stytch, get your visual workflow dialed. And then once you've done that, you can then, as I said, just easily export that into Bolt. And then you've got all of the benefits of Bolt where you can add, your user authentication, you've got your database, your secrets, your server functions, user management, all that sort of stuff. The power of Bolt under the hood, but it uses the ability to quickly visually prototype here inside of Stytch. Okay. Let's have a look and see where this is at. Okay, great. This is building, and I'll just continue. This will probably take 5 minutes or so. Do we have any questions so far about this, about Google Stytch, about what we're building, about why we're using the 3 different agents?
I've mostly been answering questions about the change to standard and max instead of the specific Opus or like Opus and everything.
Yeah. Good point. So I guess, to touch on that a little bit more, as the AI industry develops, we're getting more and more models that have different capabilities for different things. And, obviously Anthropic, when their big focus has been on writing code, or getting their agents to write code as well as possible. They've seen a huge growth in their revenue, and OpenAI has seen this, Google has seen this, and they have now pivoted. Like we saw Codex come out last year, and OpenAI has done a really big focus on writing code as well. So that's just one example of how all of these models are also getting better at writing code. Initially, Anthropic was the leader. Now it's pretty neck and neck. I actually think Codex is really on par with what Anthropic's models do. And so we basically trying to remove all that decision making. We've built a pretty powerful agent under the hood that, depending on your prompts, it's determining which coding model is the best to use, and it will automatically route it to that so that you can build as seamlessly as possible. So that was one of the big, I guess, reasons for our decision under the hood. Also, sometimes if you're asking a very simple thing like change the color from red to blue, then you don't need the highest intelligence for that. And people will, if you're not changing the model picker, if by default you are using Claude's Opus and you ask a question like that, it's going to use a lot more tokens than it needs to. So where also another big reason is we're trying to save you tokens. We're trying to use the correct level of intelligence based on your prompt. So that was basically the basis of our decision. So hopefully you find it useful. You'll notice that we've also got the standard mode as well. That's something that we roll out to people on the free plan. Max, you've probably seen, and that's for everyone who's on the paid plan, that you are able to choose that Max model. And from everything that I've been doing, I usually just stay in Max because I'm confident that it can drop down to those lighter models if it needs to.
I will clarify just for the time being, Max is focused on using Opus for right now. It's not. So if you do notice that it is like overusing tokens, you might still want to switch back and forth between standard and Max. And we're working on having it show exactly which models it's able to pick from. Right now, it doesn't show which models it has available, but that's something that we're working on right now.
Amazing. Thank you, Tyler. We had a question from last week's workshop as well, asking if it uses Opus 4.7 or 4.6 under the hood. We've actually been finding that 4.6 is a lot more stable, and Opus 4.7 tends to create more, unnecessary components, and it will be, it'll use more tokens than necessary. So because of that reason, our Max plan, when it uses Opus, it uses 4.6. as well, just to add a little bit more clarity there. Okay, all right. So step one is, Soren. So once built, is it possible to sell these agents to maybe a social media manager or assist them with their work? Will the agent be good enough for that? Good question. We'll find out at the end of this workshop. I think, building this in 1 hour, to build a product in 1 hour and think that it's capable to sell to other people is very ambitious. But this is basically the essence that we're building here. And if you continue to work on it and fine tune it and tweak it, then you should be able to really build this into a product if you want to. Okay, great. So it looks like it's done a good job here. It's done exactly what we've asked for. It's got the topic choice. It's got the research page, which we kind of need to build out a bit more, and then the post generator page. It's just created a structure for this. So the topic choice, notice it's also asking us for our Anthropic API key, which is really exciting. We can see that it's basically built this indicates that it's probably built the API or the server function correctly underneath the hood, and we'll test this now. So what I'll do is let me just grab my API key. I'm just going to keep that secret from you guys. It's important for you not to share that with anybody. Otherwise, people will use your credits. So let me just copy my API key. I've got that copied. I'm going to come in here into secrets. Another thing I will point out is we've expanded our settings to be full screen now. So, for example, something like analytics, this obviously isn't live yet because we haven't published, but things like analytics or, a variety of other things. If you're looking through your database and you want to explore these, also applications, connectors, by making this full screen, you should be able to utilize the full screen real estate a little bit better. Okay, so secrets, here we are. I'm going to paste that in and create our secret. Great, secret successfully created. We're going to come back and now let's test it out. So let's say our career is AI prompt engineer. The industry, I guess that's kind of similar. Let's say AI web development. Great. And then let's say state-of-the-art models. and their capabilities. Great. Okay. So let's test this out. Generate questions. So under the hood, okay. Don't fear. The agent had to do a lot setting up this project and also creating the server function. So I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to say, when I click generate questions on the topic choice page, I get an Anthropic API error 404. And then I'm also going to say, use the Anthropic Claude Opus 4.6 model. I'm actually going to change that from 4.7 to 4.6 based on what I just told you guys. Sometimes, because this model is fairly recent, only published in the last few months, and the knowledge cutoff is usually earlier, the LLM probably doesn't have knowledge of actually how to create this API call itself without doing research. But the Bolt agent has tool use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, please do research exactly how to implement this model. And so it's going to go off, search the web, find out exactly how to structure that API call. And I'm going to put it in plan mode, and I'm just going to send that off. So now it's not just going to use from its basic understanding or from like the innate knowledge that it has as an LLM, but it's also going to, as I said, do web research. It's going to look exactly into the developer docs. For example, I can show you here is kind of the developer docs for Google's deep research agent. This one was just released last month. And so what the Bolt agent is now doing is it's going to find the relevant Anthropic documentation for the Opus 4.6 model. It's going to look exactly how to structure the API call. Because if you get this slightly wrong, then it's going to return an error like we just saw. So it's going to do that research. It should learn. And hopefully this second time around, it should be able to call that model correctly. Oops, here we go. Here's our Bolt project. So it happened because...
I'm going to point this one out. Just maybe you can share what tool you use for dictation.
Yes, good question. I use something called Whisper Flow. It's spelt a little bit weird. I think it's Whisper like that. Flow, let me just double check. These guys here, yes, Whisper Flow. So it's really easy. I'm on a Mac computer, so I just hold function, and you see just by holding function, you hear a little beep, and then it'll listen. It's so much better than the native Mac dictation. I know some of you up at function 5, you'll probably see a microphone icon. The native Mac app or dictation, it doesn't work particularly well. Whisper Flow works great, and it just has significantly sped up my prompting time. Okay, so let's look at this. It's basically changing the model, and hopefully it's calling it correctly. So let's implement this plan. Do you use Whisper Flow as well, Tyler?
I don't, but I'm looking into it right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think on an individual plan is like $15 a month or something like that. If you're prompting a lot, I highly recommend it.
I know that we have had talks about adding like at least a little dictation option in Bolt too. So I'm going to pass that along to the team.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So with a little bit of luck, let's see where this is at. Let's see if it works. Okay. AI prompt engineer, AI web development. Help me understand the leading. Oh my goodness, sorry about that. AI prompt engineer, AI web developer, and then help me understand the leading models. Generate questions. Let's see. So fingers crossed it works the second time round. We haven't seen a 404 error, which is good. Great, it worked. Okay, now just to add a little bit more visibility onto this, we're going to come in and look in here. We can see under Superbase where it says functions, generate questions. If you want to see the actual server function that it's sending off, this is exactly where it is here. And you can read the prompt. So it goes, you are a research strategist who helps professionals identify high value research questions, yada, yada, yada. So that's exactly what it's sending off to Opus 4.6. And then this is what it has returned. So agent 1 successfully working. Now, here are the generated questions. So how does the reasoning architectures of GPT 4.0, Claude Sonnet 3.5, Gemini 2.0? So notice these are kind of old models. So that's probably because it's using its knowledge base instead of doing web research. So that's something that we can probably fine tune. We can, let's see if we can fine tune this. Is it possible for the API call to web research and okay, that's actually may need a second agent to do. So I'm going to ignore that for now. Let's try something where it's not, where the information doesn't need to be so up to date. For you, as I was saying, if you want to build this out as an actual product for people to use, that's something that you will want to work on, is that when you generate these questions, that the agent that you build can actually do web research as well. So let's try, instead of AI prompt engineer, let's say UI designer. We'll say web developer, and we're going to ask, how is the industry changing with AI? Now let's generate our questions again. For this, here we go. So here's an example research question. How are AI-powered design tools like Midjourney, Figma, Galileo reshaping the UI designer's workflow? And which specific tasks are being augmented versus fully automated? So again, notice we've got, it's a little bit like the project knowledge is a little bit old, but that's something that we should address if we're building this out. Just for the sake of time, I want to move on to the next part, but keep that in mind if you're doing this. So here's another one, which it is asked, what new hybrid skill sets are emerging for UI designers who need to work alongside AI-generated models and outputs? How does prompt-driven design compare to traditional design? Great. So we're going to add this to research. Let's see if this has worked. Great. Okay. So here it is, added to research. Now, what I'm going to do is come back in and I'm going to look at this deep research agent. I'm actually going to copy this URL and I'm going to come back in, and now it's time to start building out agent number 2. Remember, in our initial prompt, we didn't actually ask it to build this agent. So let's go ahead and do this now. So inside the research page, after a research card has been created, and I click the Conduct Research button, I would like you to send this question off to Gemini's Deep Research API. This is a new API, and you can do research on how to implement it using the following URL. I'm going to paste that URL in there. This is just sort of showing a different way to do it. And then it's likely that this research will take 5 or 10 minutes. Make sure that you allow for this in the user interface and don't time out. Great. The information should be received and added as completed research within the research page. Great. Okay, now let's plan this out and we're going to build. Well, at least create the plan. So we'll let it, by putting it in plan mode, it's now going to go to this URL. It's going to understand how it works. It's going to figure out how that API can connect into the project, yada, 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 and we'll see the plan soon. Now, while this is working, what I want to do is I'll take you over to another Bolt project that I've created ahead of time. And the reason why I've done this is because the deep research can take 10, sometimes more minutes to actually conduct. So I'm going to kick off some research in here while this is still building. Oh,
Hey,
can I
well,
copy
yeah,
and paste
they're
the prompt
asking
as
for the
well?
prompt.
Yes, okay. Here we go. So let's grab this. I'm going to copy that prompt and I'll paste it in the comments. All right, so it's again broken that down into 2 different comments there. Great. So we'll let this spin off this plan. And then as soon as this plan is complete, I'm going to implement the plan and then I'll show you the other project that I've built. Great. It's got some clarifying questions. It's always important for you to look at these. So 1, would you like the research findings to be displayed as a raw markdown in the detail model? Should I pass? Let's just say pass so it's easier for us to read. Should there be a way to cancel? Say yes. And then 3, do you already have a Gemini API key configured? Yes. Now, for those of you who don't use plan mode, let me just point out one of the benefits of using plan mode is that it's asking us some clarifying questions. Like, for example, I didn't even think about this edge case of canceling the research mid-research, but plan mode has now thought about this and asked us. So it'll often, think about other ways you can implement it, create edge cases, really think about it, and then ask you these clarifying questions. And so it's good. It's almost acting as kind of like a technical co-founder or someone to really help you build this out. So with that, I'm going to turn it off plan mode and we're going to send that build off. That'll probably take 5 minutes or so to build. So with that, let's jump into this pre-built workshop that I've already created. So in here, you can see I have a career profile, which is kind of just a more built out version of what we have in the, I guess, the initial part of the other one. And then we come into topic discovery. These are some of the topics that it has asked. So here we go, the C-suite presentation, medical, our MR, immersive. My previous role was in mixed reality, so you'll probably see some mixed reality questions in here. So here we go, why AI code generation will make UX designers more important, not less. So I'm going to hit research this, and I'm going to put this into deep research, and I'm going to kick off this run deep research task. Now, as I said, this can often take between 5 and 15 minutes. Basically, how Google Deep Research works is it's going to find dozens, sometimes hundreds of sources, all articles on the internet, and then it's going to read all of those, synthesize all of the information, and then create one nice output from that. Let's have a look at some of the research activity that I've done in the past. So here's an example of how it can look. So if I'm going to click onto this, this is the question that I asked. What skill gap is emerging between traditional developers and those proficient in AI assisted development workflows? So that was the question that I kicked off. And then here we can read the full report. And this is Google's deep research report that it's created from that. We can see it's found articles that touch on the emergence of a new development paradigm. We've got some key findings from this. Then we go down, data and statistics, a quantitative landscape of AI adoption, and it's found a whole deep research is really incredible. If you haven't used Notebook LM, combining deep research with Notebook LM is a fantastic tool that, the workflow that I like to go through is kick off deep research. Once you've got this nice big output like this, you can copy this into Notebook LLM, and then you can generate an audio overview, and it basically synthesizes it into a podcast. And you can basically listen to all of this over a 20-minute or a 40-minute podcast, and it basically reads all of this out to you in a really engaging format. So that's something I recommend playing around with as well. Now here we can see, look at all of the sources that it's referenced, 63 different sources along the way, and it's referenced the exact article as well. So if I click on these, this is an example of one of the articles that Deep Research has gone to find and use to synthesize that research. Great. So now that that's done, actually, let's quickly look in our project. Okay, it's still doing this. That's still building out. Now, you can almost imagine, I see that we're getting close to time here. Time has absolutely flown by with this workshop, but what we've done is we've built out agent 1. We're currently in the process of building out agent 2. And if you can just imagine that this plan goes ahead and finishes everything, we should then see all of our research from that specific question, that it should be presented to us like this, and we've got all of this research here. We're now going to go ahead and build agent number 3 in this other project that I have created ahead of time. So let's basically come into our research activity. Here's an example. Now, I have actually built this out ahead of time, so I click create post, but I want to show you exactly how to build out this agent. So I'm going to basically do this again. So, we got a question, Eric, right? This is likely coming up. Would love to see how to adjust the output style. For example, instructions on how to create an engaging hook, or better have it research what engaging hook would be based on current trends. Okay, fantastic, Eric. And that's what I can suggest there is perhaps spinning up another agent. So as I kind of mentioned before, it's great to have a very specific use for each of these agents, and then they can really get good at doing what they do best. So let's do our best and incorporate that question into this third agent that we're going to build out, and that'll be summarizing this information into a post. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clear the context, because I like to do that every now and then. As the projects get larger and we build out new features, we're ready for this third agent. So here we are in the page, and here we go with our prompt. So I would like to build out another agent which creates a different set of social media posts. Its focus should be on creating an engaging hook. To trigger this agent, add another button inside the Ready to Write component on the topic discovery page, and it should be called Create Engaging Hook. So there we go, create another button in there. This should then create a server function which sends the entire deep research report to the Anthropic Opus 4.6 model. Again, I'm going to say this is a new model, so please do research on how to implement this. And then adding to that, this agent should create an engaging post for the platform X. Actually, you know what? I'm going to say LinkedIn, because X posts are usually really quite short. So just for this example, I'm going to show LinkedIn first, and hopefully we'll get to X after it. To implement this agent, you should create a posting from the platform X using the deep research and keeping in mind what works best for the LinkedIn format. Okay, let's put this in plan mode, and we're going to send this off. Great. So agent 3 is in the project, in the process of being built. Now, notice that I've included a lot in this prompt. I've asked it to basically do two things. One is we want it to send off this deep research and synthesize it into an engaging social post. But we've also asked it to kind of determine how to make a engaging social post. That, again, could probably be broken down into two parts. And you could add another page in here, and it could have an agent which specifically can do research on what makes a post engaging. This is also something that you could ask, Google Gemini or Claude or OpenAI ChatGPT, and you can basically, from the output, it it should basically create a structure for you. Some of you may be familiar with skills and how they work. Effectively, what you're trying to do is create a structure that the LLM can follow to create that engaging social post. So for example, the structure may say that start off with one single captivating hook as your starting point, and then a paragraph to describe the content of the post, and then maybe a question to the audience to leave something in the comments at the end. That is an example of a structure that you may want to outline. And then when you're sending your server function off, you can basically ask Bolt to use that structure plus the research, synthesize that together, and then create the post. Okay, so Richard, do you connect the 3 agents or do they operate independently? So at the moment, they're operating independently. And basically why we're doing that is, well, they're sort of sequentially passing the information down. We've got no clarifying questions here, so I'm just going to assume that's good. As best practice, I highly recommend you just reading through all of this. Just for the sake of the demo to save time, I'm going to just hit implement this plan, but I recommend you reading through. And now coming back to your question, Richard, where they kind of are connected in a way, like effectively we are creating questions from agent 1, and then we're passing that question into agent 2, and then to create the research. And then from that research, we're passing all of that research into agent 3. But we're not asking one agent to do all 3 of those 3 things. We're just simply getting the information from one of the previous agents and then sending that through into the next agent. And again, if we come and coming back to this guy, okay, this is still working. If we look at that first server function that we created, generate questions, and we actually read through this, we'll be able, as I was sort of speaking on before, you are a research strategist who professionally identify high value research questions. So by giving it a really specific role as its system prompt here, we can say it's timely and it's relevant, yada, yada, yada. And notice also it's passing in what we basically outlined in our career, our industry, and the topic as well. So here it's saying generate 5 research questions with the following context. So it's effectively using the user's inputs and the system prompt to then create an output. The same if we come into our other pre-built workshop and where are we? Superbase, we look at our functions. Here's our deep research one, for example. If we come and we look into this, it's basically, it's going to be doing the same thing where it's going to be passing in, well, this is actually to conduct the deep research, but once we're ready to generate the posts, that's when it will pass in some of the information from that deep research as context, and it will send that off over to the agent and receive that back out.
We had another question asking for the prompt.
Yes. Thank you. Where were we? I think we're up in here. I think it was this one, right? I'd like to build out another agent. Yes, I think this is for agent number 3. So I'll copy this and I'm going to paste this in here. Format. Yep. And it looks, there we go, over 2. So Joseph pointed out that skills are like superpowers. Yes, very well said. I don't have time right now to basically blow the horn of how good skills are, but I highly recommend doing research on what skills are and how you can use them. They really are like superpowers, so they're worth including as well. I can't believe how quickly this workshop's flown by. It's already pretty much at the end of the workshop. What I might do is wait until this prompt completes and I can show you where we're at. Something I will point out is it does look like this one got a little stuck. Perhaps what I should have done is maybe cleared the context a little bit earlier. We did ask it to do a lot. So sometimes when it is in a state like this, what I like to do is hit stop and then I just hit continue. And what it will do is it will use basically all of the previous like code that it's already created or the plan it's generated. It basically stops and then it's able to continue using that. So let's see how well this goes. So it's going to try and redeploy that. This one's building out here. Effectively, while this is building, I'll show you basically what it the previous create post. Let's just have a look back into our research activity. Noticed if you had a look before, it was saying it was about 12 minutes, but now it's just finished completing. So let's click onto this. We can see the research summary that we just asked for. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, so here we can see this is the research summary that we just asked about why AI code generation will make UX designers more important, not less. And here's the full report. Let's go back, and then now we're going to hit create post. So what it will do now is it will use all of this plus the 52, well, all of that research that's been generated here. It's got our platform. Whoops. Here we go, and we hit create post, and now I'm going to hit generate copy. And this is a third agent. As I said, I built this out ahead of time, so it should now generate the copy for a LinkedIn post as this third one is building out. Great, so it's building this. It's analyzing the research and crafting 5 unique post variations. Yes, okay. Michelle, curious, how many tokens building this tool would use for the entire generator? Oh, good question. I actually should have turned my token count on so we could have seen this at the beginning. Hard to say. Tyler, do you have any intuition?
I mean, how many prompts did you end up doing for these? You only did a couple of prompts for each one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're in max mode, and it is a relatively complex thing, it could be spending $1 million or $2 million to really build out this thing, because it's building a lot out the gate. But between making these 3 agents, I think it would probably be less than 3 million tokens, maybe less than 2 million tokens is my guess. But that's
kind of, yeah.
I think that's pretty good for building 3 separate agents that are going to do all this work for you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of what I was going to say. I think my ballpark estimate would be a few million tokens. I'm trying to remember. I think it's what a $25 plan gets you about 10 million tokens a month. So it's maybe $5 or something like that to build out something, save you time. That's my back of the napkin maths. Okay, so let's have a look at these variations. Notice the interface is actually kind of cropping some of these off a little bit, but we can see that it's now created some of these example posts. Here we go. So if I click on this, it actually shows me the entire post here. So let's read one of these in detail. So variation 3, plot twist. 50% of UX designers are now shipping code directly to production. Now, this is something that will have been a number that has been determined from the deep research that we've done, and it's used that deep research to now synthesize this into a post. AI tools like Bolt.new help us. And I think the reason why it's mentioning Bolt.new in particular is because earlier as agent 1, notice that I have mentioned that my company is Bolt.new. So it's actually creating a post which is relevant to my specific role. Let's come back in here. Whoops. Okay, I'm actually going to have to create posts again. I haven't optimized this UI. It looks like once we generate the copy, we don't actually save this, which probably should, but that's something that you guys can do. Here we go. Wait, sorry, my apologies. Here we go. Create posts, generate copy. Now it's going to have to do it again. Let's see how this one's going. Okay, great. So let's see. So the project built successfully. Now we should have this deep research. And if I click on this, here we go. We're going to have to hit conduct research. when I hit conduct research, it should now start off our conduct research phase. Okay. Let's jump back into this one. Here we go. Here are some 5 example posts that it's built out. So here we go. Let's click on this and here we go. So here's another example of a post that it's created using the deep research. The 300 billion AI investment bubble has a dirty secret. 85% of enterprise AI projects fail to deliver business value. And that, again, is a statistic that it will have determined from Google Deep Research, not because the models are bad, but because the UX is terrible. I'm seeing this shift at Bolt.new. VCs are no longer funding AI wrappers. They want proof of user adoption and retention. StubHub redesigned their AI interface transparency and generated 117 million ROI from 4% conversion boost. The AI gold rush is over. The UX gold rush is just beginning. So perhaps as a UX designer, that could be an example post that you could use. Here we go. Here's another one. Entry-level dev jobs just dropped 35% in 2 years. Again, this will have been not just fabricated from some sort of hallucination. It will have been used from the deep research that we've done. Perhaps you could add a 4th agent to this, and you could basically pass all of this content through to maybe like a verification or something like that. But the point of this workshop really is to show you the essence of the power of connecting a variety of different agents. We're using one specifically to generate a question based on our career or our industry. Then we're passing that generated question into doing deep research. And then from there, we're synthesizing all of that deep research and we're coming and we're creating a post from that. So we are a little bit over time. It was a lot to cover today, but I hope this has really been helpful for you. Our workshops are recorded, posted to YouTube. It should be on our channel by tomorrow. With that, I'm going to wrap things up. It looks like, do we have any final questions? Looks like, Tyler, you've done a really good job answering these in the chat.
We did just have one more about the recording. And so if we can just reiterate for anyone who joined late, where they can find the recordings.
Yes. Okay. So if you go to, I'm pretty sure we don't have last week's workshop posted to this site, but all of the previous ones should be there. If you go to workshops.bolt.hosts, that's a page built specifically for workshops. So you should be able to find them there. And then also we post onto our YouTube playlist as well. So let me just grab that URL exactly for the playlist in particular. Just bear with me 1 second. YouTube Studio playlist workshop. I'll copy this link and here we go. So in the comments I'm posting now, if you go to that YouTube playlist, you should be able to see where all of these workshops are being recorded. Guys, a big thank you. Let's say a big thank you to Tyler. Thank you so much for being here, doing such a great job answering all of the questions in the chat. So thank you, Tyler, for being here. You've done a great job moderating. Also, like to say a big thank you to all of you guys for joining us. Thanks for your excitement towards Bolt. Thanks for your I feel like Bolt really attracts people who are super excited about the burgeoning AI capabilities. And so good on you guys for all being here. I hope you're able to use this and actually build something out. You saw what I was able to do in an hour. Imagine what you can do in a day or a week. Then hopefully you should be at the point where you can just click something like, you can also set up cron jobs inside of Bolt. So you can say, generate a question every day and then generate deep research every day based on that question and then spit out 5 social media posts. And you can basically come to this dashboard that you create every single day, and it should have 5 example posts that you can choose from and then post that. So hopefully this has been really useful. As always, your feedback is greatly appreciated. I think you should all receive a link to the feedback. We do actually offer a $500 every quarter. We send out a $500 Bolt voucher for those of you. We randomly choose someone who's left feedback for the workshops, and we'll send out a $500 Bolt voucher. So there is an incentive on you guys to leave feedback as well. It also really helps us to gauge how much these workshops actually go towards helping you. So
maybe one last question here.
yes. Would be great to email everyone all the prompts used as well. Okay, that's actually a really good point, Jeff. Thank you. I can send out a follow-up email to everybody where I've got all of those prompts nicely formatted as well, so you can build out your agent. So, you know what may actually be helpful as well to save you guys a lot of tokens is let me just copy this project URL. Oh, actually, Tyler, if I share my project with other people, it will have my secrets in it, won't it?
I think so, but I mean, you could remove them first. I mean, we could send out an email, kind of like what they were saying, after we make sure things are cleaned up.
That's a good point. With the follow-up email, I will send out the URL to the Bolt project as well. So if you want to directly fork that Bolt project or duplicate it so you can basically use all of the building blocks that we've already created, you can do that and plug in your own API keys. So we'll make sure that we'll send that out in the follow-up email as well. Again, thanks for all your feedback. It means the world to us. Thank you, Tyler, again, for being here. And thanks for all of you for joining us. So hopefully see you on next week's workshop. All right. Bye, everyone.
Yes, thanks, you guys. Thanks, Will.
Bye.